Happiness, the science of well-being in relation to family and friends. Happiness and the science of subjective well-being covers a very broad spectrum of our lives. It can be influenced by money and fame, connections, relationships, and social norms. Today we will be focusing on the connections and relationships part, and specifically talk about how it pertains to our family and our peers. My job, to help listeners better understand the topic, is to describe the issue at hand and give you some basic background information before the others really get into the topic and make everything clear. Just to let everyone know, we will be restating some information that was given to us by the first group of presenters on this topic. Most of the information I'm going to be exploring is from both the original group's presentation and the module titled Happiness, the Science of Subjective Well-Being by Edward Diner. To start off, it is very important to remember that happiness is the pursuit of life. For most people, happiness is the most important goal that they would like to achieve in their lives. Everyone has both internal and external happiness. The internal happiness comes from our genes, and the external happiness comes from our personal experiences. Since internal happiness is considered to be a default setting, it isn't as hard for people to find. Scientists have also proven that there is a correlation between happiness and better health. The best way to find external happiness is through your friends and family. Spending time with your friends and loved ones will ideally lead to you being in a better mood, which will then lead to you living a happier and healthier life. Everything is connected. It is also important to point out that there are 3 different types of happiness. The first type is high life satisfaction, which refers to being satisfied with one's occupation and life in general. For example, it is important that we find a career we will enjoy and be at least somewhat happy to go to each day, so we aren't just miserable for the rest of our lives. The second type, positive feelings, includes having a lot of positive emotions, feelings, and a minuscule amount of mood changes. A couple examples of positive feelings could include joyfulness and love. The final type is low negative feelings. This is different from positive feelings because it involves not experiencing negative emotions often. Emotions like sadness and anger wouldn't be typical for someone with low negative feelings. Now that I have given you the basics of the topic, you will find it easier to comprehend the rest of the information and learn from the others.
Hey guys, my name is Bree Van Heck, and right now I'm going to be exploring how loneliness can affect people health-wise. Now, before I fully delve in, I think it is important that I make everyone aware of the distinct difference between being alone and being lonely, and just how loneliness can affect somebody physically. I've decided to show you guys a clip from a TED Talk on loneliness by Will Wright. And just as a preface, I'd like to say that I included this TED Talk after being inspired by the original group of presenters on happiness in the science of subjective well-being and how they chose to incorporate a video in their presentation first. So I'm just going to put it right on.
I'd like to ask you all one question. Who here has never, not once in your life, been lonely? Now, I'm not talking about being alone. Being alone is a choice. People go on hikes alone. People go to the movies alone. Philosophers oftentimes think their best thoughts alone. No, being alone is good. I'm talking about being lonely. Loneliness is not a choice. It represents a fundamental mismatch between the relationships that we have and those that we want. Loneliness is not good. And here's the thing. Loneliness is killing us. I've worked in public health for over a decade, studying trends in chronic disease, and I can tell you that loneliness puts us at greater risk of developing disease. People who are struggling with diseases like diabetes, depression, even cancer, oftentimes got those diseases in large part because they were lonely to begin with.
Yeah, so I'm just glad that that video clarified some things. And Now, I appreciate the fact that he placed such an emphasis on the difference between being alone and being lonely. Just like he said, anyone can be alone. However, that doesn't reflect that person's mental state because being alone is something everyone experiences at some point and is only a temporary state of our physical self. In fact, some introverts may feel re energized by being alone. And now I know I'm not in person, but this might be an important time to just set some time aside and really think to yourself over whether you need some alone time uh, just to re energize yourself. On the other hand, being lonely reflects a state of mind that no one wants to experience. Humans by nature are social creatures, and so to feel lonely is to go against our nature. And it's also important to note that you don't need to be alone to be lonely. In fact, you are all college students mostly, and you may be residing in a dormitory right now with roommates and other people, although social distancing guidelines are in full throttle. You may notice that despite being around and near people, you are still feeling lonely. That's because being lonely is a mental state while being alone is a physical state, and the two don't coincide. In terms of how loneliness can influence us physically, I think it is notable that Will, along with the TED Talk presenter and the other video shown to us by the last group, both mention how much loneliness can impact us physically. The last presenter, along with Will, later on in this TED Talk, we didn't get to that part quite yet, mentioned that being consistently lonely is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Personally, most of my family have been smokers for my entire life, and I have seen firsthand just how badly smoking can hurt somebody, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. And to recognize that being a lonely, although it doesn't come with the same or equivalent physical consequences as smoking does, can carry just as much damage is really shocking, if not terrifying, especially somebody to me who sees the consequences of smoking every day of their life. Now, one thing that this TED Talk made me question was whether or not loneliness could hurt someone's ability to recover from the coronavirus. I say this because we just learned that our health can be negatively impacted by loneliness. And so, loneliness could also potentially cause problems for us later down the line if we were to contract the coronavirus. Just because when you contract the disease, you need to be isolated, which could potentially cause you to have feelings of loneliness and exaggerate feelings of loneliness if you already have them. And we know that loneliness causes issues with our health. And so, how do those two issues correlate? Is something that I would like to think would be a really interesting research question. I haven't placed much emphasis on this, but the whole point of the previous slides is to implicitly show you guys just how significant our family and friends are when it comes to our happiness. Not having a good support system is so costly and unhealthy for us that those who are lonely are at higher rates for developing diabetes and other physical illnesses. Our loneliness and sadness manifests itself physically and puts us at higher risks for all sorts of physical issues. And I think that's what people don't quite understand is that our mental state translates to our physical health as well. For instance, if we become too stressed out because we don't have somebody to vent to and to express our discontentment and anger to, we can develop ulcers. And of course, ulcers can develop for a number of other reasons. But one reason is that perhaps we don't have a good support system and we are carrying a lot of stress by ourselves and we are not able to unload. That is a perfectly reasonable explanation as to why somebody may develop a physical illness, that being ulcers.
Family is one of the building blocks of society, and its structure and role often reflects social changes and the state of society. Just a couple of decades ago, corporal punishment was considered a viable option for punishment, but nowadays it is considered abuse by a majority of people. Just like this example signifies, over the past 3 decades, family units have evolved significantly. In fact, in the world we live in today, there is not a single approach or strategy a family may employ that applies universally. Now, although the structure of family units has changed significantly, the importance of family has not. For this reason, it is easy to see just how important one's family is for happiness. A lesser known reason why many may consider family necessary for happiness, according to BetterHelp.com, is because it is seen to provide financial stability. Having the essentials covered is important when guiding a path for a life filled with happiness. With that being said, studies have shown that the connection between family and happiness develops separately in regard to money or possessions. Support is a crucial aspect in why family is important for happiness. According to happiness.com, it is proven that up to 70% of parents depend on their children for emotional stability and support. To add on to that, research has proven that knowing someone that you know is there for you has the ability to counter stress, depression, as well as having a low self-esteem. The people we acknowledge in our lives as family tend to cherish a sense of mutual alliance and dependability. By caring for those that we love, as well as being looked after by those same people, can tie together great feelings of attainment. Families can be a shelter from the outside world. Healthy families are a place to hide away from problems and offer a safety blanket when things go wrong. The boost that can be provided from family when life throws a person a curveball is very crucial in maintaining happiness within an individual. Diving into the benefits of unconditional love and support from family members. This allows a person to feel that they have a network of people they can count on. This benefits our overall physical and emotional health. Our family accepts us for who we are, which creates a positive outcome for both sides. For those that give and receive unconditional love and support.
Can't wait to see you. Happy birthday, Dad. All I want is nothing more. To hear you knocking at my door. Now I'm built a home. I will see Daddy and I hope he could come home soon. Went to the doctors. Found out we're having another girl. Make a goofy face today. When you said your last goodbye, but I will inside. I'm waiting. Good night, Dad. Good night, honey. Love you.
If you had a wish today, what would your wish be?
That my dad could be here.
Our sons are doing what they need to do to protect the country. Turn around.
When is he coming home?
Hopefully a week.
She hasn't seen her son in a year and a half.
As you can tell in this video, people love their families, and when they are away, they cherish the times they spend together, and they desperately wish to see each other soon. With all these ideas and concepts put into place, it ultimately lets a person feel a sense of belonging, which leads to happiness. Research compared people with and without a strong sense of belonging. The results were clear. Those who felt they belonged to a supportive group reported being happier.
My name is Patrick Mello, and I am an electrical engineering minor and a business major, and today I am speaking on family peers in relation to future success. I can vividly recall myself at 3 years old on Christmas night taping a dustpan to my brand new RC car so that I didn't have to put in so much effort to clean up my toys. My priorities were defined from that point on, and although the lack of effort was great, the great impression made on me that day was by something related but completely separate from that janky dustpan RC car hybrid that did more spreading than cleaning. This was the response from my parents. In a way, this was the disbelief that their child at age 3, who could not write, for that matter spell, or recite a single letter from the alphabet, took two unrelated functions and placed them together to solve a problem. The positivity and forms of praising influence resulted in a connection in my young mind in its early phases of learning right from wrong. This, which to this day results in a form of satisfaction and happiness when faced with a problem that involves a type of engineering problem solving, rather than procrastination and pushing off of such task. As I know of right now, that floor sweeper that I taped together 17 years ago hasn't fixed the global warming crisis, has not solved world hunger. However, that the response from my parents implemented a seed in my brain that would form to this day, creating a cascade of dopamine-related sketches, drawings, blueprints, and builds that pushed me down a path of engineering and business. With such a relatively small and insubstantial moment making such a drastic impact on the direction of that young child's mind, we can start to imagine the magnitude of which a child's mind is molded by those that are closest to them. We all know at least someone who has had a helicopter parent who dictated their every move in hopes of maximizing their success later on in life. That way, their kids do not have to make the same mistakes that they did. Although normally meant with good intentions, this can cause more harm than good, and all too often. This can lead to dependency on this parent's dictation rather than the ability to solve one's own problems. Not only this can cause this individual to not be as independent when grown, this can also lead to a decrease in self-esteem and even a resentment of these same good traits.
In recent years, a rising number of college students have started to become depressed and lonely without seeking help. Over time, the stress of schoolwork, being away from home, and making friends are just a few of the stressors that college students face. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 8 or 9 months, the globe has been hit by a fatal pandemic with no clear ending in sight. This pandemic has suspended many in-person meetings and the ability to be with friends, which has made more students feel lonely and self-report their depression. In fact, according to a study conducted by the National College Health Assessment, out of 48,000 college students surveyed, 64% of students reported feeling extremely lonely in the past year. With the coronavirus, this number has increased compared to previous years when students were not being forced to social distance for safety reasons. In another study conducted by American College Health Association, which compared college students in the fall of 2019 to college students from the spring of 2020 semester, there were clear differences shown between the two groups. In 2020, there was a 5% increase in the number of college students who self-reported depression. Depression can lead to drug addictions at young ages for students, or even suicide. Additionally, 69.7% of students reported they were following social distancing guidelines closely, but still weren't happy. For students, it is good to follow social distancing guidelines, but there's a downside to it. These guidelines can cause students and people in general to feel more lonely, and as we know, loneliness can result in sadness and an increase in depression rates. Additionally, college students who are already away from their family at school are now being faced to stay away from their friends, which may find some students finding it extremely difficult. According to a study conducted in 2017 by 3 psychologists with PhDs, in regards to well-being, married people on average enjoy better mental health, physical health, and longer life expectancy than those who are divorced, separated, widowed, or never married. This is mainly because studies show humans are better off and overall happier in healthy relationships. Also, family relationships play a huge role in shaping an individual's well-being throughout the course of their life. Also, according to this study, family relationships have become more important to well-being as individuals age, as need for caregiving increase and other social ties such as the workplace become less important in their lives, as family becomes even more important.
When it comes to improving our state of happiness in any sense, it's important to always try to place yourself in positive environments. With that being the case, spending time with loved ones is a great way to improve happiness. Everyone enjoys being around the people they love, whether that is peers, family, or anyone else of that sort. Surrounding yourself with these important people will help anyone that is on a quest to improve their happiness. Another important thing to remember is that the quality of the bonds you have is much more important than the quantity of the bonds that you have. The happiest people are not those that have the most friends and the biggest families, but they are those that have the correct people in their lives. Always remember that quality is way more important than quantity in this sense. Those are the steps you could take to help improve your overall happiness. Agents of change are people that not only initiate change but also manage it. One of my favorite examples of this is if there was a sports team that was constantly underachieving and someone on that team decided to stand up and take leadership. They know that the team is not doing as good as they're capable of, and with that in mind, the player that stands up tries to get everyone on track and on the same page as an agent of change, but he cannot just stop after that. He must continue to do so. Imagine similar situations to that in different settings. The same could be done. It takes a lot to be an agent of change because you have to sometimes take ownership and leadership of a group that you may not be used to yet in that way.
So, all in all, I hope that this presentation at the very least helped you to understand just how significant friendships and family are in our lives. I think it is often easy to take the people we love for granted, and I think that the coronavirus pandemic has illustrated the significance of the roles that loved ones play in our lives. Only when we were not allowed to see the people we love in the name of social distancing were we able to definitively see how much their presence in our lives made us happier. And ideally, I hope that this simply just reaffirmed and re-cemented your gratefulness and empathy for those who have stuck by your side through thick and thin. And just like Isan said earlier, when it comes to your happiness, the quantity of the people that are in your life don't matter, opposed to the quality of the relationships that you have in your life matter. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it all, and I'm glad you stuck with us the entire time. And here is our works cited. And thank you.